because for some reason it cuts out the first few seconds of talk when the stream starts. So yeah, you ready?
Yep.
Excellent, excellent. So, it's not going to be much of a recap. I'll do more of the last session recap when we start the actual session. But basically, to sum up, you guys, walked through the night, got to the slums, spoke with the slumlord briefly. We're going to expedite, basically, since all of you were going on 24 hours without sleep, except for you. That he basically has supplied you guys with a house in the upper tiers of the slums, right on the edges of the right, like basically up along the wall. Kind of in like the stilt housing section. So you guys make it there, and I'm just kind of, as I see it in my mind, everybody just kind of like falls asleep, and you, of course, after quite the night out, find a suitable place to sit. Thusly, you sit down and you meditate. So yeah, you after the night you've had, sit down to meditate, and just kind of naturally, I feel like, maybe start recounting your day, somewhat. So you're kind of sitting there, digging in your mind, and something does jump out to you immediately. It's just kind of like a feeling just immediately grabs your attention. Something that you, no doubt, just feel that it's not yours, that it belongs to Varian, who, now that you think about it, has been mysteriously quiet throughout the night. You feel her somewhere in you, faint but present nonetheless. This feeling of hers, it's kind of like a contorted angst, just kind of a very muddled expression of some sort, confusion maybe, towards a person, something, maybe a place. It's not something that she often, if ever, kind of reveals. So let's explore this.
Okay.
So, you sit down to think about it. When did it start? You're no doubt preoccupied earlier, so it's no wonder you didn't really feel it until just now. It certainly required a level of introspection, which you have kind of become accustomed to feel her in a way. So let's say you begin to mentally retrace your steps, recounting yesterday in your mind. You woke up, got corralled by the guild, met with Stone. That made you feel pleasant? Yeah, that's nothing new, right? Okay, so you met Skiz in the alleyway, went to the owl. Rhiannon seemed a little stressed, but maybe, that's just her. She gives herself too much to do anyway. Let's see. Went to the meeting, blah blah blah, sinister plot, heard Sansan's cry for help. Went to the alleyway, helped out these new people. The owl guy showed up. You killed the guilders. The owl guy showed up. There it is. That feeling. Why him, Varian? What about him? You think on this for a second, sort of revisualizing him in your mind, kind of holding a picture of him just still in front of you. Varian is quiet, sort of unsure about herself from what you can tell. You can almost visualize her meditating as well, eyes closed, trying to discern what this might mean as you do the same. You examine his figure. Nothing out of the ordinary, no outstanding characteristics, normal height, normal build. You're welcome to give me an investigation if you'd like.
Okay. God, doing this all on my iPad is a pain. My die are still rolling. Yeah, I can't use my the app for the player anymore, so.
Oh no, why not? Oh yeah, okay. Yep, I know why.
Okay, I got a 15.
15. Okay, so yeah, kind of holding this image of him in your mind. Normal height, normal build, nothing too obviously flashy. Kind of has his cowl drawn. Obviously wearing the owl helmet. Maybe something there, I don't know. But his clothes, well, those do stand out a little bit. Leather coat, seemingly custom. Bracers, rear braces, pauldrons, also custom. Nothing super special, except for the owl symbol on the pauldrons. There's an owl symbol the symbol you know, in the middle of each of the pauldrons. That symbol, something about it seems to register with Varian. The helmet too, which echoes the symbol in its design, from what you can see, kind of peeking out from beneath the cowl. Um, those eyes like voids watching you from behind that helmet. You start to feel entranced as Varian's emotions seem to take over. That contorted angst returns, along with a hint of sadness, but curiosity also, an urge to discover. When suddenly you feel yourself become to, well, Lord Almighty, you feel yourself start to become locked in place, trapped inside of your own minds, a feeling that you are familiar with, as this is how Varian taking over usually feels. Something feels different this time, however, like, instead of Varian taking control over you, you are spectating yourself through Varian's eyes. Um, the figure, who until now has been stood still in front of you, turns around and begins to walk away from you down the alleyway. Varian, who also seems to be in some sort of trance, quite like yourself, follows. You are along for the ride, but you are welcome to try and fight it if you like, and or investigate, perceive things.
I will just be along for the ride.
Okay. So this is, I will point out, unlike anything that has ever really happened to you in relation to Varian. Normally, this only happens when you're awake, so that might strike you as odd. But she has definitely kind of assumed control, and not in a way that is conscious. It seems like she, like yourself, is unconscious. She's just kind of like taking the reins in an unconscious state. Got my die out. I realized I asked you to roll, and I was like, wait, my die are out. Yeah. Okay, so the figure leads you down the alleyway, at the end of which, instead of an intersection like there is in the actual alleyway, there is simply a wooden doorway with reinforced iron bands across its top and bottom. The figure opens the doorway with kind of a heavy creak, as an old doorway would do, and opens the doorway and walks through it, followed shortly by Varian. As she steps through the doorframe, this might be a little jarring, the once dark alleyway kind of gives way to this large throne room, constructed of dark stone and black wooden beams in the rafters. In front of you and slightly to the left, you can see the back of what appears to be a throne, blocky and chiseled from a rough, porous stone. The figure is no longer in sight. Varian slowly approaches the throne, kind of circling around it to get a look at its front, and you and she seem to recognize this throne. It is the same one from her memory that you have seen kind of in the brief flashes that you can gather from her, with blood staining the seat and the tops of the armrest, running down to the floor, expanding outwards into large black pools that are long stained into the dark stone floor. Varian reaches out an arm very slowly, hesitantly, and you are shocked to see that it is not your arm, but instead hers. She places a hesitant hand on the throne, and the moment that her skin contacts the rough stone of the throne, a sudden wave of conflicting emotions washes over you. Anger, sadness, fear, confusion, love. After a brief moment of stunned remembrance, she turns to leave rather hurriedly and walks about 20 feet towards the large doorway opposite the throne at the opposite end of the throne hall. And before she can make it, halfway out of the throne room, you kind of feel your arm get tugged behind you, as if a hand were grasping yours and restraining you from walking any further. Varian whips around to lock eyes with a male figure, clad in brown leather and cream cloth. His sharp features and elongated ears, along with his fine golden skin, suggest that he is a high elf, but he has this kind of definite human ruggedness to him that might suggest otherwise. He's grasping Varian's hand and mouthing words at you, and it isn't really until now that you realize you can't really hear any sound around you save for this slight kind of humming, ringing in the air. The words from the man's mouth are heard as if you were listening to him with your head submerged in a bowl of water, even though he appears to be on the verge of shouting. As he speaks, you notice something, a symbol stitched into the cream cloth with a gold thread. that same owl symbol, kind of near his lapel, as if he's kind of wearing a sash. Varian, after a moment of him speaking, rips her hand out of his, leaving him standing in the middle of this throne room, and she marches through the large open doorway out into the nice air, actually. Nice, cool, subtle breeze air. Kind of smells mountainy, perhaps. She hastily walks down a winding stone path, which leads away from this large stone keep that you have just exited. The path winds downwards into a large circular courtyard surrounded by tall trees of black bark with leaves of vibrant green. Outwards from the courtyard, you can make out 4 paths total, each heading in roughly a cardinal direction. All are winding up into this bowl-shaped kind of natural stone structure that this location is built within. Varian herself is excluding a very powerful feeling of anger, just a blinding rage, pure and fiery hatred as she approaches a set of stairs, a winding stairs that leads underground below the courtyard. Varian marches down the stairs and enters into a short tunnel, which exits into a large, completely spherical room, perhaps the size of like a school gym. It's a very large spherical room. At its center, there are 2 bridges, one extending from the doorway that you have just entered and kind of arcing upwards, and another beneath it, perpendicular, arching downwards, kind of crossing over top each other. A tree rests atop the middle bridge, the top bridge that is, with its roots kind of wrapped around the smooth stone structure as if it were willingly holding itself in place. A very winding, twisting tree. Next to this tree, a figure clad in black robes stands, holding something in his hand, something small, like a jewel, glowing a very bright pastel green. Varian rushes up to him as if to confront him. Similarly to when the man was talking to her, you can hear her shouting at the man, whose back is turned to you, but her words are muffled, kind of like you were trying to hear her saying something from like 2 rooms over. Apart from the words, the only emotion you get from her is just a definite anger, a kind of a feeling of mistrust and betrayal. The figure stands motionless in front of you, seemingly looking at the jewel in his hands. After a while, Varian stops shouting, and the figure very slowly and rather calmly turns to face Varian. You now see the jewel quite clearly as it rests in the open palm of the man who is almost specifically holding it outwards for Varian to see. Your eyes, Varian's eyes, are drawn to it. It is made of a peculiar substance, jade-like but not jade, looser somehow, flowing, with flecks of some sort of dark substance suspended within. It glows as if its light is being like shone on it, like a spotlight is hitting it, even though there is no light to do it. It kind of makes it glow from within in a strange fashion. As you stare, that ringing begins to almost pulsate within you, hitting a frequency that seems to, in some way, resonate with your very being. It begins slowly, a bassy, resonant ringing, which slowly builds in intensity like 2 marbles in a glass bowl, slowly gaining speed as they circle endlessly. The jewel feels as if it's calling to you, in a way, beckoning you to come closer. Kaz, the feeling feels familiar to you, in a way that is not quite discernible.
Okay.
Suddenly, immediately next to your left ear, a voice speaks to Varian, clearer than anything you have heard thus far. You have served your purpose. This all but pulls you out of your trance, and in a split second you realize that the man is no longer stood in front of you with the jewel, but instead now holds it in front of your face with an arm that extends over your left shoulder. Before Varian has any time to react, you feel an incredibly sharp pain in your neck, a feeling which you recognize immediately. Varian is stunned for a moment as she attempts to comprehend what has happened to her. She raises a very shaky hand to her throat and weakly grabs at the hand that she finds there. Oh Lord, I lost my place. So yes, she is now clutching the handle of this dagger that has surely ended her life. A moment later, the blood sets in, and you feel as she is unable to breathe, slowly drowning on her own blood. Her knees weaken and buckle beneath her, but she does not fall to the ground as she is suddenly cradled in the arms of her assassin. The man hunches over you with an expression most unsympathetic. He moves a hand to your neck and removes the dagger as if it were a splinter, causing a second wave of pain to wash over you. He kind of just very loosely tosses the dagger aside and retrieves the jewel from his other hand, as Varian chokes, gasping for air, but finding none. He slowly raises his arm with the jewel in hand so that it hangs just above your chest. For a moment, nothing seems to happen until eventually the jewel begins to glow quite brightly, that same kind of pastel green, just much more intense. And you begin to feel your very essence, your energy, every strength within you, magical and physical, begin to drain from your body. The ringing noise emanating from the jewel grows to a painful crescendo, and your head feels as if it's going to burst. The jewel is blinding to behold, casting such a light that you can't see anything but it, suspended over your person. It is calling to you again, beckoning you. Varian, with the little strength that remains in her, casts an arm upwards towards the jewel, grasping it with her left hand. Over the rigging, you can hear the voice of the man call out in a just anger, pure anger, and protest, and in your left hand you feel a power so strong that it feels as if you might explode. The room around you elongates as if it were being stretched in front of you and behind you, and with a deafening crash, the round walls, the tree, the bridge on which you lay, all blow apart like glass outwards from you. And you feel as if you have been fired out of a cannon through an infinite space. Instantly, you wake up from your meditation as if you had been defibrillated, and that is where we will end it for you. This brief session of remembrance with good timing. Hello, Mark. Cool, yeah. So I'm going to end this one, and we will...
I just got the notification that he joined.
Yes, we are about to begin the actual one, so thank you for joining me. I will see you in a few minutes.
Ready.